Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, and for more bedtime stories, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never thought owning rental cabins in the mountains would turn into something that still keeps me awake at night. People think hosting vacation homes is easy money. Just list it, clean it, forget it. That might be true for some folks, but not for me. Not for what happened that winter. Before everything went sideways, things were simple. I lived in Denver but owned 2 small rental cabins in a little community outside Nederland, Colorado. Quiet town, thick forests, real postcard stuff. The kind of place people from the city book when they want to reconnect with nature, breathe the cold air, pretend they're characters in some Hallmark movie. My cabins weren't fancy, just old wooden places sitting at the edge of Roosevelt National Forest. One of them, the Aspen Hollow cabin, is where this story takes place. A single-floor, 2-bedroom structure with a wraparound porch and windows that look out into miles of nothing but trees. Most of my guests were respectful. Some trashed the place. Some stole small things like towels or chargers. But nothing ever rattled me. Not until that week. A big storm had been forecasted. One of those Colorado winter blasts where the news anchors say stuff like, "Stay off the roads unless absolutely necessary." The storm was supposed to hit Saturday night. On Thursday morning, I got a message from the cleaning contractor I usually hired. "Hey, I'm sick as hell today. Won't make it to Aspen Hollow before the next guests." Great. The guests had just checked out, a family of 5. Families are usually messy, and with snowfall coming, I didn't want to risk leaving trash outside or food inside. Bears, raccoons, whatever. They'd make a buffet out of it. So I figured, screw it. I'll drive up Friday, clean the place myself, and stay the night if needed. Before leaving, I texted my nearby cabin neighbor, guy named Riley. Well, neighbor meaning his place is like a quarter mile away through the trees. I barely knew him beyond polite small talk and the occasional, "You need anything before the storm?" He replied, "I'm in Boulder this week. Cabin's empty. If you drive past it, mind checking if there's a package at the door?" Simple enough. I packed supplies, filled the tank, threw my old snow boots in the back seat, and drove up. The drive was normal at first. Dry roads, light traffic, until I got closer to Nederland. That high-altitude air always feels different, like it cuts straight through layers. The sky was heavy and gray, like it was holding its breath before dumping hell down on the mountains. I reached Riley's cabin first. Parking in front of it, something felt off. Not horror movie off, just, why does this look weird? Off. There were tracks in the snow, not tire tracks, boot prints, fresh ones. A single set going around the side of his cabin and disappearing behind it. Now look, mountain areas get hunters, hikers, weirdos taking shortcuts. So it wasn't an immediate red flag, but the footprints didn't look like someone walking their dog or cutting through to a trail. The steps were slow, deliberate, circling the cabin like someone was inspecting it. I checked his porch for packages, none. Snapped a photo of the prints and sent it to him. He called instantly. "Those aren't mine," he said. "Check if any windows look screwed with." "Dude, I'm not trying to play sheriff out here. Just take a quick look, please." So I walked around the side of his place. The prints went right up to a window. The glass wasn't broken, but I saw smudges like someone leaned close. I walked farther and saw they went behind the cabin, then into the tree line behind his property. Deep woods, no trails, just wilderness. I told him. He sighed and said, "As long as the door isn't busted, I'll deal with it when I'm back. Thanks for checking." I drove uphill to my rental cabin. Right off the bat, I noticed more footprints near my cabin too. But these were old, probably from the family that stayed earlier. Whatever. I unlocked the door, stepped in, and took a breath. The place was a mess. Dirty dishes, empty soda cans, candy wrappers, muddy prints on the floor. Families always underestimate how much chaos they create. I turned on music and started cleaning. It took almost 2 hours to tidy the kitchen, empty the trash, wash bedding, everything. Around 3 p.m. I took a break, stepped outside onto the porch and watched the sky. Snow was starting, small flakes swirling like dust. The air felt heavier. In the mountains, you learn to recognize when a storm isn't messing around. I went back inside, folded blankets, scrubbed the bathroom, vacuumed the living room. Everything was normal. Until it wasn't. Around 4:30 p.m., with music still playing, I heard something that cut through the sound. Crunch. Footsteps in snow. Slow. Heavy. I turned the music down. Another crunch. Another. Someone was walking around the cabin. Not fast, not casual, just circling. My first thought was maybe a lost hiker, so I looked out the nearest window. Nothing. But the sound was unmistakable. Someone was out there, moving from one side of the cabin to the other. My car was parked outside. Whoever it was knew somebody was home. I didn't go out. I didn't yell. I just quietly locked the door and watched the window for a while. After maybe 5 minutes, the footsteps faded away into the snow and silence. My heart didn't stop pounding for a full half hour. By 7 p.m., the snow was falling hard, thick flakes hammering the windows. Visibility was maybe 12 feet. The world beyond the porch was just white chaos. I cooked something simple, sat at the small dining table, and tried to calm down. I told myself I probably imagined the footsteps. Snowfall can echo weirdly. Trees cracking, ice dropping off roofs. To anchor myself, I called my sister back in Denver. "You sure it was footsteps?" she asked. "You get jumpy alone out there." "Yeah, thanks for the pep talk. Look, just lock the place, stay inside, and don't let your imagination go wild. It's literally blizzarding." She wasn't wrong, but she wasn't there either. After dinner, around 8:45 p.m., the house started making those sounds old cabins make in winter. Wood popping, beams settling, roof creaking under new snow weight. I told myself that's all it was. I put on a movie and sprawled across the couch. The storm roared outside, the wind slamming against the siding. Real Colorado whiteout. But halfway through the movie, I heard something new. A faint thump on the outer wall, followed by another, and another, like someone was banging snow off their boots. This time I muted the movie. Silence. Then, soft movement against the siding like fabric brushing wood. Someone was right outside. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the closest thing I could defend myself with in a fireplace poker and crept down the hall. Every board beneath my feet felt too loud. I reached the bedroom. The window curtains were closed. I thought I saw a shadow move right past the window. Just a faint dark blur. No footsteps this time. No noise. Just presence. Then the silence broke. A small tap on the glass. Not a knock. Not enough to break anything. Just a fingertip tapping the icy pane. I froze in place. After about 15 seconds, I forced myself to step forward, grab the curtain, and yank it open. There was no one there. But there were footprints, fresh, right beneath the window, leading toward the back of the cabin. My throat went dry. I shut the curtain instantly and backed away. I grabbed my phone and thought about calling the sheriff, but I hesitated. What would I say? There's footsteps outside? They'd think I'm paranoid or drunk. So I waited. I sat back on the couch, poker in hand, eyes locked on the front window. The storm howled louder, rattling the cabin. Hours passed like that. No more taps, no more footsteps. Around midnight, exhaustion hit me like a truck. I got into bed with the poker beside me, fully clothed, boots on the floor in case I needed to run. Sleep came reluctantly. I didn't wake slowly. I woke instantly, because someone was on my roof. Heavy footsteps crunching directly above me. Not an animal, not snow sliding. Actual footsteps. Step, 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 walking along the roof toward the corner of the cabin. Then silence. I whispered, "Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ." over and over. My hands were shaking so hard the bed frame trembled. I grabbed my phone and dialed the local sheriff's office. A dispatcher picked up. I tried to keep my voice steady. "There's someone on my roof. I'm at Aspen Hollow Cabin off Ridgeview Road. I heard footsteps. I'm not imagining it." She didn't dismiss me. Probably happens often in mountain towns. "Stay inside. Lock your doors. A deputy is on the way, but the roads are rough. ETA is around 40 minutes. 40 minutes. I thanked her and hung up. The footsteps didn't return. No sounds at all except the storm. Every minute felt like an hour. I heard a truck engine outside before I saw lights. Then a knock. "Sheriff's Department. You can open up." I let the deputy in. Young guy named Deputy Callahan. Snow coated his jacket. He looked around with his flashlight. "You said someone was on your roof?" "Yeah. I swear I heard it. Footsteps. Clear as day." He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He just nodded. "Let me check outside. Stay here." He went back into the storm. For 15 minutes I paced back and forth, heart pounding. When he returned, he brushed snow off his hat. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. "You were right. There are footprints up there." My chest tightened. "Looks like whoever it was climbed onto your AC unit, pulled themselves up, then walked across the roof. No signs they broke in, though." I asked, "Why the hell would someone do that?" He shrugged lightly. "People roaming around cabins isn't unheard of during storms. Could be someone lost. Could be someone high. Could be someone checking for empty homes." Then he paused. "But climbing onto the roof? That's unusual." "No shit." He advised me to stay until morning. "I'll be patrolling the area. Call if anything else happens." He left. By sunrise, the storm had calmed. Snow sat deep across the porch like frosting. I barely slept an hour. I walked outside and saw the footprints Deputy Callahan mentioned. Faint but visible. A path leading from the AC unit to the edge of the roof. Then a drop-off into the snowbank below. The prints continued into the woods. It was like someone had been watching the cabin from above. I cleaned up the last of the place, packed my things, and drove away as fast as the plow trucks allowed. 2 weeks later, Deputy Callahan called me. "We've had 2 more reports of someone walking around cabins in your area. Same footprints, same behavior. Approaching windows, walking roofs." I felt sick. "Did you catch him?" "Not yet. But listen, whoever it is, they're familiar with the woods. They avoid cameras. They move quietly. My guess, they're living out there. Maybe displaced, maybe avoiding authorities. Just be careful." The sheriff's department never found the person. I rented the cabin again later, and new guests never reported anything strange. But every time I go back alone, I can't help imagining someone watching from the tree line. Or worse, standing on the roof again. I was 13 the winter everything changed for me. Back then, I wasn't the jumpy, nervous type. I was a kid from Burlington, Vermont, used to snowstorms, used to being left alone for a few hours, used to thinking the world was mostly safe. But that night, that one damn night, I learned otherwise. My name is Jalen Price, and this happened long before I ever knew what real fear feels like. My parents had just started leaving me home alone on weekends because my mom picked up extra shifts at the hospital and my dad worked at a body shop outside town. They weren't bad parents. They just trusted me. I'd always been the responsible kid in school, the one teachers asked to collect homework, the one neighbors asked to watch their dog. But storms always felt different. Our house sat at the bottom of a dead-end street with a huge backyard that backed up to woods. Not a friendly little patch of trees. Actual deep Vermont woods where the wind sounds like voices on some nights. Our basement wasn't creepy in the movie way. It was finished. Carpet, TV, old couch, my dad's treadmill. But it had one long horizontal window facing the backyard. When you were down there at night, that window always felt like an eye. Like something could be staring in and you'd never know unless it wanted you to. That night, December 19th, the snowstorm had been announced for days. Schools closed early, Roads got messy by 5 p.m. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. My parents left around 6:30. 3 hours max, my mom said, pulling on her scarf. Call if anything feels off, okay? Nothing's gonna feel off, I said, rolling my eyes. My dad ruffled my hair. Yeah, big man's got it handled. They left laughing, and I remember thinking, this is easy. I'll play games, eat pizza rolls, go to bed. I had no idea what was waiting for me. You need to know one thing. We used to have a neighbor behind us named Old Man Laurel. He lived alone, barely spoke, and used to complain about kids in the woods, even when none of us were out there. My older cousin once told me Laurel saw things in the trees, shadows walking between trunks. I didn't believe any of that crap. I was a kid, not stupid. But that evening, around 7:30 p.m., I swear to God, I heard something moving out there. Not footsteps, more like dragging. Long, slow, heavy. I turned off the TV and listened harder. The wind was insane outside, like it was punching the house, but underneath that I heard something else, like someone walking with weight. I forced myself to ignore it and went back to playing video games. That's what kids do. Pretend nothing is wrong until it's too wrong to pretend anymore. It was 8:03 p.m. when it happened. I was mid-game when bam, something hit the basement window from outside so hard the controller slipped from my hands. I froze, didn't even breathe, just stared at the damn window. Snow blew sideways in thick waves, slamming against the glass. But underneath the blown snow, I saw small white chunks sliding down the pane. Maybe ice fell? That was my first thought. Yeah, probably ice, I whispered to myself, but I didn't fully believe it. Then, 2 minutes later, another impact, much harder. This time I stood up so fast the chair toppled over behind me. No freaking way that's ice, I murmured. Something was out there. I ran upstairs, trying to act braver than I felt. The house was quiet except for the storm hammering the roof and the faint rattling of window panes. I went to the mudroom, flipped on the backyard light, and peered out through the glass door. I couldn't see the whole yard because of our huge brick privacy wall. I hated that wall right then. It created a perfect blind corner. Hello? I called out like an idiot. Anyone out there? Of course, nobody answered, but I heard crunching, like feet shifting in deep snow. I opened the door just enough to lean out. The cold slapped me instantly, snowflakes pelting my face. Hey, who's out there? I shouted. That's when I saw it. Movement behind the wall. A shape, crouched, still. My mind grabbed the first explanation it could. Trevor? Dude, if you're messing with me. Trevor was my older cousin. He liked pranks, so it made sense for half a second. But the shape didn't move like Trevor. It didn't even flinch when I spoke. I felt a cold pit in my stomach. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I slammed the door shut and locked it. My hands were shaking when I grabbed the phone. I called my mom. Hey, everything okay? She asked, distracted. Is Trevor here? Did he say he was coming over? My voice cracked. No. Why? What's wrong? Someone's in the backyard. What? They were throwing something at the basement window, and they're still out there. I saw someone. She put me on speaker immediately. Where's your dad? I asked. I'm here, he said. Jalen, is this some kid messing around? I don't know, I whispered. They're hiding behind the wall. My mom's tone shifted. We're coming home, lock the doors, all of them. My dad added, stay upstairs, don't walk around near windows. Then another voice joined the call. My mom must have dialed 911 silently. I heard her say, yes, my son is home alone. There's someone in our backyard in the storm. I went upstairs to my room, closed the door, turned off the lights and waited. The wind howled. Snow hit the windows in waves. The whole house creaked like it was trying to hold itself together. But then, Someone walked past my upstairs window. The silhouette was too tall to be a kid, and the way he leaned toward the glass, slow, deliberate, felt wrong on a level I can't describe. I ducked down instantly. "Jalen?" My mom's voice called through the phone. "What happened?" "He's upstairs," I whispered. He's looking in the windows." My dad swore loudly. My mom said, "Stay down, don't move." I didn't, I couldn't. And then, thud against my bedroom window. Something hit it, hard. A second hit, a third. "Hey!" a voice yelled from outside, muffled by the storm. And it wasn't a kid's voice. It was deeper, rougher, like someone older, someone angry. "Open up, I know you're in there!" My whole body went cold. My mom must have heard him because she gasped. "Oh my God, the police are almost there. Stay down, honey." I pressed myself against the floor, shaking uncontrollably. "Come to the window," the man yelled again. No chance. Not in a million years. He hit the glass again, hard enough to rattle the frame. Then it stopped. Just stopped. Silence except for the storm. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. When the doorbell finally rang, it scared me almost as much as the man did. I crept down the stairs slowly and checked the peephole. A female officer stood there, snow piled up on her hat, flashlight in hand. I opened the door a crack. "Jalen Price?" she asked. "I'm Officer Rowan. You okay?" "No," I said honestly. She did a full sweep of the yard, checking behind the wall, the shed, the patio, the trees. I watched her through the glass. After 10 minutes, she came back in. "Footprints everywhere," she said. "Whoever it was walked the whole yard, right up to every window." I swallowed hard. "Did you see anyone?" "No. But the way those prints stopped near the wood..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He left recently. Very recently." She stayed with me until my parents got home. My mom in tears, my dad furious. The officer talked to them for a long time. At one point I heard her say, "With the storm, visibility was low. It's possible he was casing houses. You should install motion lights." Casing houses. Great. When she left, my dad sat next to me and said, "Next time you call sooner, don't think you're bothering us." I nodded but didn't say anything. Because there was one thing I didn't tell them. One thing I kept to myself for years. When the officer was checking the yard, I saw something from the upstairs window. Not the man, not footprints, but a long drag mark leading from our property into the woods, as if something heavy had been pulled away. No one believed me when I mentioned it later. They said it was plow tracks or snow dragged by wind. But I know what I saw. I know someone was out there in that storm. And they weren't alone. I've always hated the sound of wind rattling closed windows. It reminds me of being a kid, lying awake in my parents' crumbling rental house back in Detroit, listening to the old siding slap against the frame whenever a winter storm rolled in. The house was cold, drafty, and crooked in every possible way, but those winters, man, they stayed inside my bones. Maybe that's why, even as an adult, I kept doing stupid things like agreeing to remote winter trips in the mountains. Some part of me was always trying to prove that the cold didn't bother me anymore, that I'd grown past it. But the night I'm about to tell you about, that night reminded me the cold can still kill you just as easily as anything living. It happened 4 years ago when 2 friends and I decided to spend a long weekend at a remote cabin outside Blacktail Ridge, Colorado. A place so isolated that the closest gas station was 30 miles away, and the road to the cabin wasn't even paved. The kind of place locals warn you not to go during a storm. But when have we ever listened to locals? I had been dating Riley, a graphic designer from Phoenix. Sweet girl, smart, tough, but completely inexperienced when it came to snow. She'd never even owned snow boots before this trip. She had this adventurous streak though, always trying to keep up with me, even when I told her she didn't have to. My best friend Lucas had invited us. He wanted one last wild winter before I get too boring, as he said. He had recently gotten engaged to Lena, a bartender from Albuquerque who had seen snow exactly twice before agreeing to go with us. So there we were. Me, a guy with childhood snow trauma, Riley, a desert girl trying to impress me, Lucas, the thrill junkie, Lena, the one who probably should have said no to all of this. We all met up at my apartment in Denver on a Thursday night, and early Friday morning, we started driving toward the mountains. None of us realized the storm heading straight for Blacktail Ridge was the kind that closes highways, traps snowplows, and shuts down whole towns. We just wanted a fun weekend. Snowboarding, drinking, laughing, stupid, harmless fun. Funny how fast harmless things can turn. The cabin belonged to Lucas's uncle, an outdoorsman who lived most of his life alone and died alone too. The cabin hadn't been used since his death, and trust me, it showed. When we pulled up the long dirt road, ruts frozen into jagged lines under the tires, the place looked like something out of a movie. A-frame roof, dark green siding, wide porch chimney leaning slightly. Snow already blanketed the ground, but only a few inches. The storm hadn't hit yet. "Dude," Lucas said, jumping out of the truck, "tell me this doesn't scream mountain vibes." "It screams something," I muttered, grabbing our duffel bags. Riley elbowed me. "Stop being dramatic. It's cute." Cute. Right. Inside it smelled like stale wood and old boots. Dust everywhere. Fireplace cold. The place hadn't seen a human in a long time. But after a couple hours we got it warmed up. Fire crackling, generator humming, lights flickering in that unsettling old cabin way. The plan was simple. Day 1, settle in. Day 2, snowboarding plus exploring. Day 3, hang out and drink. Day 4, drive home. We didn't get past day 2. We were outside that first evening, sitting in the hot tub on the back deck. Steam rose through the freezing air. The sky was bruised purple, heavy with more snow to come. Lena lifted her head suddenly. "Did you hear that?" Lucas splashed her. "Hear what? Moose farting in the woods?" "No, seriously." She pointed toward the tree line. "Sounded like, I don't know, humming? Really low humming." I listened. Nothing but wind. "You're hearing the generator," I said. "No, this was different." She wrapped her arms around herself. Riley whispered, "That's creepy." I should have paid attention then, should have taken her seriously, but I laughed it off, leaned back, and let the heat of the water erase the tension. Biggest mistake number 1. I woke up around 6 a.m. to silence. Not normal silence. Thick silence. The type you only get right before something massive hits. I stepped outside, and the world looked wrong. Snowfall so heavy I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. Wind howling through the trees. Sky completely white. And the temperature? Brutal. As I stood there watching the storm swallow the valley, I felt something strange, like the air itself was vibrating. I couldn't explain it. Inside, everyone was waking up. Lucas was already getting his boots on, grinning like a kid. "We're hiking up the ridge today. No boards, just boots." He slapped my back. "You down?" I was. Of course I was. Even though something was already eating at the back of my mind, that old childhood fear whispering, "Storms hide things." But I pushed it away, because I always do. We left around 11 a.m., snow piling up fast, wind cutting sideways. Visibility shot to hell. Riley stayed behind with Lena. They planned a movie day and hot chocolate. Warm, safe, smart. Exactly what I should have done. Lucas and I headed up the ridge trail, a narrow path through thick pines. He was laughing, yelling over the wind, a total maniac. I kept glancing over my shoulder, not sure why. Maybe because the snowstorm had that suffocating feel, like sound gets swallowed, like the whole mountain holds its breath. Halfway up the trail, Lucas shouted, "Dude, tell me this isn't the coolest thing ever." I was about to yell back when I heard it. A low, bassy moan, Not an animal sound. Not the wind. Human. Maybe 50 yards behind us, but impossible to see through the storm. I whipped around. "Lucas, did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Another moan. Longer this time. A tremble traveled through the ground beneath us. Lucas stopped walking. "Okay." "Yeah. I heard that one." We looked at each other, both trying to pretend it wasn't terrifying. "Probably just the wind," he said weakly. "No chance in hell. You don't grow up in Detroit winters and not know the difference." But neither of us wanted to admit it, so we kept hiking faster now. That was mistake number 2. We didn't hear footsteps at first, just crunching, soft, slow, deliberate. Lucas froze. "You hear that?" I nodded. "Someone's behind us," I whispered. "No way. No way anyone else is dumb enough to be up here right now." Crunch, 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 getting closer. We couldn't see anything, just swirling white. I yelled, "Hey, hello, who's there?" No answer, just the crunching, steady, unhurried, like whoever it was could see us perfectly fine. Lucas grabbed my arm. "We should head back." "Yeah." We started descending faster than I thought my legs could move in deep snow. The footsteps followed, same distance, same speed, not gaining, not falling behind, just matching. That scared me more than anything. People get winded, people slip, people fall. Whatever was behind us didn't. We made it maybe halfway down when I felt my phone buzz, finally hitting a patch with weak service. 7 missed messages, all from Riley. "Are you guys back? Someone is outside. There are 2 of them. They're walking around the cabin. One of them looked in the window. Please answer. Where are you?" My stomach dropped. I tried replying, but the message wouldn't send. I dialed her, straight to voicemail. "Lucas," I said, voice shaking. "We need to move." We practically ran, slipping, sliding, falling, getting back up. Snow whipping our faces raw, the moaning behind us growing louder, angrier. At one point, Lucas grabbed my sleeve. "Dude, that thing, whatever it is, it's closer." I didn't look back. I didn't want to know. When the cabin finally appeared through the storm, I felt a wave of relief so strong it almost dropped me to my knees. We banged on the door until Riley opened it, yanking us inside. She was pale, eyes red from crying, hands trembling. "What happened?" I asked. She pointed toward the windows, now covered with makeshift blankets. There were 2 people out there, like, walking slow. One came right up to the living room window and just stared. Didn't say anything, didn't knock, just stood there. Lena added, voice cracking. And they weren't wearing the right clothes. Like, not winter clothes. One looked like he was in jeans and a hoodie. Bare hands. No hat. Nothing. Lucas whispered, "No way they survived out there dressed like that." "That's what I'm saying," Riley snapped. "Who the hell walks around in a blizzard like this without freezing to death?" I didn't have an answer, because I knew exactly what she meant. Whatever followed us didn't sound human. Night dropped fast, storm worsening, wind screaming, snow piling against the door. We tried to distract ourselves with a movie, but half an hour in, boom, boom, boom. 3 hard knocks on the front door. Riley screamed. Lena covered her mouth. Lucas reached for the shotgun he found in the storage room. "Don't open it," I whispered. "No shit," he replied. We waited. Another set of knocks, slower this time. Boom, boom, boom. Someone clearing ice from their throat outside. And then, a voice, low, gravelly, like vocal cords scraped raw. "Let me in." No emotion, no urgency, just wrong. I felt tears burning my eyes. Some childhood fear digging its claws into me. Riley grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "Oh my God. Don't let him in. Don't let him in." We didn't move. We didn't speak. We didn't even breathe. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Nothing. No footsteps leaving. No sound. Just silence. Like he was still there, listening. We tried to sleep in the living room, all four of us. Lights on, fire dead, shotgun loaded. Around 3 a.m., I woke to a sound that turned my stomach to ice. Something circling the cabin, slowly, deliberately, snow crunching under heavy steps. Lucas whispered, "They're back." "They," I whispered. "I hear two sets." He was right. Two different rhythms, one slow, one dragging a foot. They circled us for almost an hour, then tapping on the wall, then the window. Not knocking, just tapping, like testing it. I couldn't even look at the window. If I saw a face, I knew I'd scream. At some point, exhaustion overtook fear, and I drifted off. I woke to daylight and silence. We packed up fast, didn't even eat, just wanted to leave. When I stepped outside, something made my stomach lurch. Around the cabin, no footprints. None. Not a single indent in the snow. Fresh snow had fallen, sure, but not enough to erase everything. Not enough to hide the tracks of someone who circled the cabin for an hour. Riley whispered, Where did they go?" No one answered, because we all knew the truth. Something had been out there. Something that didn't leave tracks. Something that didn't freeze. Something that didn't rush. Something that moved through a blizzard like it was nothing. We didn't talk the entire ride back to Denver. To this day, none of us agree on what happened. But every winter, every time the wind shakes my windows, I think about that voice outside the cabin. That knock. That moaning in the woods. And I pray to whatever's listening that I never hear it again. Because that night, in that storm, something walked with us. Something followed us home. And I don't think it was human. I grew up in a place where winter didn't just arrive, it swallowed everything. I was born in Juneau, Alaska, and if you've ever lived here long enough, you know the land has its own voice. Some say it's the wind. Some say it's the wilderness. My late grandmother used to say it was the old ones beneath the ice. I always thought she was half joking. But after everything that happened on that night in December, the night the storm came early and came hard, I realized my grandmother wasn't joking. Not even a little. I'm telling this story because I still don't understand what happened. I've tried to make sense of it, logically, rationally, but there's a piece of the night that defies everything I know about the world. And it began with a missing puppy. I'd been dating Landon Reeves for almost 11 months. He lived with his parents, Rick and Holly Reeves, in a place called Taku River Bend, a small stretch of land about 20 minutes outside Juneau. Out there, houses sat far apart, separated by forest more than fence. Snow piled high enough to swallow small cars. Landon's house was one of those classic Alaskan cabins. Solid wood, moss on the roof, a porch that permanently smelled like pine and cold air. The Reeves family wasn't rich, but they lived comfortably, and they had a damn good heart. Especially Rick. He was what we call a real Alaskan, a man who could fix a snowmobile in the dark with a pocket knife and duct tape. 3 weeks before everything happened, Rick adopted an 8-week-old Alaskan husky puppy. The sweetest little guy. They named him Cody. Cody loved everyone, especially me. He'd run to me the moment I stepped through that door, tail wagging, eyes bright, like I was his entire world. That little pup never ignored a call, not once. That's what made the night so terrifying. It was a Friday. I had come over to spend the weekend with Landon since a snowstorm was forecasted for early Saturday morning, and the roads would get dangerous fast. But Alaska weather doesn't wait for forecasts. By 3 p.m., thick gray clouds had started pooling low over the mountains. By 6 p.m., the wind had turned sharp, carrying little pieces of ice that stung your cheeks. By 8, the storm was already whispering through the trees, that slow, eerie whistle the locals just call white noise. A little after 9, Rick stepped outside to bring Cody in. He wasn't there. Probably hiding behind the shed, Landon had said at first. The wind's freaking him out. But the wind wasn't even close to the worst part. "Cody! Come here, boy! Cody, hey, pup, let's go!" We were calling him again and again, but the backyard, the entire stretch of snow-lit forest behind the house, remained dead quiet. I could feel panic tightening in my chest. This isn't normal," I muttered. "He always comes to us," Landon said, limping slightly as he stood by the back door. His right foot was wrapped in a hard, orthopedic boot. He'd slipped on black ice the week before and fractured 2 bones. He wasn't supposed to walk much. Rick opened the front door and said to a postal driver, "Yeah, storm's hitting earlier than they said." Holly was still at work for another hour. It was just us 3 inside the house. And suddenly I felt this horrible sinking feeling. Something was wrong. I grabbed my snow boots from the mudroom hooks, heart pounding. "I'm going out there," I said. "I'll check the whole yard." "Careful," Landon warned. "Floors are wet from the snow I tracked in." He wasn't kidding. The tile was slick. I shoved my right foot into the first boot, tightening the strap. The second boot was still wet inside, cold on my toes. As I tried to slip it on, I hopped sideways across the kitchen, trying to get closer to the back door. My foot slid out from under me. It happened fast, too fast. I slammed down hard on my left knee, pain exploding through the joint. My other leg shot forward like it belonged to someone else. Then gravity pulled me backward. I remember thinking, this is gonna crack my skull open. The kitchen tile was unforgiving, and I was falling with full weight. But right before the back of my head hit, 2 hands caught me. Firm, solid, warm. One hand braced my upper back. The other clamped my shoulder. Steady, strong, holding me upright. The grip was unmistakably human, not weak, not ghostly. Human. I felt 5 fingers. I felt pressure. I felt the squeeze. I gasped, stunned. "Shit, thanks," I whispered. I thought it was Landon's dad. Who else could it be? Landon couldn't walk fast, and he was in front of me, not behind. But when I turned, no one was there. Not even a shadow. I sat on the floor in shock, breathing heavy. Snowflakes flurried past the back door's window. Wind howled against the siding. Landon hobbled toward me. Hey, are you okay?" I fell. I think your dad caught me." "My dad?" he said, frowning. "Dad's at the front door." "No, he was behind me," I insisted. "He grabbed me. Landon. He literally caught me before I hit my head." Landon shook his head, confused. "What are you talking about? I've been watching you the whole time. Nobody came behind you." My stomach tightened. Rick walked into the kitchen just then, wiping snow from his coat. "You all right?" he asked. "Heard a noise." "Your wife's girl took a spill," Landon said. I jumped in. "But you caught me, right? You came in behind me?" Rick blinked. "Caught you?" "Honey, I wasn't even in here. I was still on the front deck talking to the driver." I stared at both of them. "No," I whispered. "Someone grabbed me. Someone helped me." Landon and Rick exchanged looks, the kind you give someone when they're confused from shock. But I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what I felt. Despite what happened, or maybe because of it, I put on my boots and pushed into the storm. Rick grabbed his gloves. "We're not losing that dog tonight," he said. "Not out here." The wind had grown louder, picking up thick sheets of snow that slapped against our jackets. The world was white. Not soft white, violent white. We checked the yard. We checked near the shed. We checked the snowblower that sat under a tarp. Nothing. "Cody!" Rick shouted. "Boy!" No bark, no whine, just the howl of the wind. Landon stood at the back door, holding it open, shouting instructions. "Check by the fence." He might have crawled under the deck. "Try by the old fire pit." But he couldn't come out, and the storm kept getting louder. I rounded the corner of the house and saw something that froze me more than the cold. A trail of tiny paw prints, Cody's size, leading toward the tree line. But the prints weren't normal. Each little paw mark was spaced far apart, too far, like he wasn't walking, like he was being dragged, or running, but not in the pattern puppies run, not playful, not normal. Something about them was off. "Rick!" I yelled. He stomped through the snow toward me. "What do you got?" I pointed. His expression tightened. "That ain't right." We followed the prints, but after 15 feet, they just stopped. Like something lifted him straight into the air. "Where the hell did he go?" I whispered. Rick didn't answer, because there was no good answer. We were about to turn back when something moved in the trees. A blur, a shape, something low to the ground but fast. I grabbed Rick's arm. "Did you see?" "Yeah," he muttered. "Yeah, I did." We both stepped back. The storm roared so loudly it felt like it was screaming. But over the wind, I swear, I heard a voice, a soft voice, a man's voice. It whispered my name, not loud, not from far, but directly behind me. "Hey!" I spun around. No one, just swirling snow. Rick didn't hear it. He kept scanning the trees, but I heard it again, closer. "Hey!" A breath on my ear. I slapped my hand over the side of my neck and stumbled back. Rick grabbed me. "What happened?" Someone's out here," I shouted. "Someone whispered." Before I could finish, a sound tore through the woods. A high-pitched, terrified yelp. "Cody." Rick bolted forward. "That's him!" We ran deeper into the trees, following the sound, slipping through snow that reached up to my knees. The wind sliced at our faces. Branches cracked under the weight of ice. "Cody! Hang on, boy!" Rick yelled. Another yelp, this time muffled. We pushed forward until we reached a small clearing, and there, half buried in snow, trembling violently, was Cody. But something was strange. He wasn't alone. There were fresh footprints around him. Huge ones, human ones, bare feet, in the snow, deep, clear, perfect. And they circled Cody like someone had been standing over him. Rick cursed. "What the holy—" Cody scrambled toward me, whimpering, burying his face against my leg. But the air around us felt wrong. Thick, charged, like static crawling across your skin. I grabbed the pup, scooped him up and said, "We need to go, now." Rick didn't argue. We sprinted back through the trees, Cody shaking uncontrollably in my arms. When we got inside, Landon shouted, "Oh, thank God." He tried rushing over but winced from pain. "Cody, buddy." The pup ran straight to Landon, curling up against him, still twitching. Rick locked all 3 doors. Then he turned to me, serious in a way I'd never seen him. "What exactly did you see out there?" I swallowed. "Bare footprints," I whispered, circling him. Landon frowned. "Bare? Who the hell is out in the snow barefoot in a storm?" Rick exhaled slowly. "There's stories," he muttered. Landon rolled his eyes. "Dad, don't start." "No," Rick said, "you don't ignore things like this, not here." "What stories?" I asked. Rick hesitated, then said quietly, "White Walkers." Landon groaned. "Oh, come on." "Not the fantasy shit," Rick snapped. "The real stories, the native ones, the ones from before all this land had roads." "What do they do?" I whispered. Rick looked at me. "They take things. Animals, sometimes people. When storms get real bad." My skin crawled. "And you think one was out there?" Rick didn't answer. His silence was louder than words. I hadn't told them about the hands that caught me, the squeeze on my shoulders, the whisper in the storm. Because if I told them, Landon would think I hit my head. And Rick would believe it. Maybe too much. But that night, when everyone went to sleep except me, I replayed the moment over and over and over. Someone had been behind me. Someone lifted me. Someone whispered my name. Someone who wasn't seen. And that brings me to the part I've never told anyone, not even Landon. When I was getting ready for bed, I closed the bathroom door and stared at the mirror. My shoulders hurt, a weird ache, not bruised, just sore, like someone had grabbed them hours before. I lifted my shirt slightly, turned sideways, and looked. There were fingerprints, not full marks, not bruises, but faint pressure lines, as if 5 cold fingers had squeezed before disappearing. And then, outside the bathroom window, past the snow, past the dark, past the storm, a figure stood at the edge of the yard, tall, thin, motionless, barefoot. I froze. It didn't move, it didn't blink. It just stood there, as if watching the house, watching me. I whispered, "No, no, no, no." Its head tilted, slow, deliberate, like it recognized me. Then the wind rose, snow cut across the glass, and when the gust settled, it was gone, vanished, like it had never been there at all. But something tells me it was the same thing that caught me when I fell, and the same thing that whispered my name in the storm. That night I slept with the lights on. Cody whined the entire time, and every now and then I swore I heard footsteps on the snow outside, bare ones. I grew up in a place where winter felt less like a season and more like a personality test. If you could make it through January without snapping at someone, you were officially a local. I live in Fargo, North Dakota, and yeah, I know the jokes. Why would anybody live there? Hell, sometimes I ask myself the same thing. But this is where I was born, where my mom raised me, and where my memories are buried under layers of ice. Back then, I was 26, working night shifts at a small print shop and sleeping during the day. My internal clock was flipped upside down long before this story took place, so staying up until 3 or 4 a.m. wasn't unusual for me at all. The night this all started, I was wide awake, and I swear on everything good in this world. What I saw wasn't human, or it was human, but not from here. My name's Reynold, though everyone just calls me Ray. Not many people in Fargo stay up at 2:30 a.m. staring out their kitchen window during a snowstorm, but that's pretty much my entire personality. My routine was simple. Make tea, watch the snow blow sideways, let my brain settle. That night, though, something else settled into my life. Something that still scares the hell out of me. It was late January 6 years ago. One of those nights where the snow hits the window like sand and the wind sounds angry enough to peel shingles off the roof. The whole house trembled every time a gust slammed into it. I had just finished a long night at work. The heater in my truck had died a week earlier, so when I stepped into my kitchen that night, I still had the cold stuck to me like a second skin. I put water on the stove, rubbed my hands together, and muttered something like, "Goddamn Fargo winters. Feels like the earth's trying to kill us." My mom, if she had been alive back then, would have said something like, "Ray, winter builds character." Maybe it does, but mostly it just builds resentment. I opened the blinds because I always check on my truck during storms. It's an old beater, a 2003 Ford that looks like it survived 3 divorces and a tornado. But it's the only thing I've got. Snow was coming down so thick it looked like static on an old TV. And then I saw them. 2 men, side by side, walking down my street at 2:30 a.m. in a goddamn blizzard. My first thought wasn't ghosts. I'm not that type. I don't jump to supernatural explanations. I'm the kind of guy who blames shadows on headlights or creaks on bad wood. But these two, something about them punched me straight in the spine. They were walking slow, not trudging, not fighting the wind, just strolling, like they were on a quiet summer evening walk. No one does that in a Fargo blizzard. No one can. I leaned closer to the window, squinting. Both of them wore dark coats, not winter coats, not thick parkas or insulated jackets. Just coats, like the kind you wear in fall. One of them lifted his hand and gestured casually while talking. I couldn't hear anything through the glass, but he moved like the wind wasn't slapping him in the face. That's what freaked me out first. People don't move like that when the wind chill is minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Curiosity poked at me, so I reached up and pulled the curtain slightly to the side, giving myself a clearer view. Not more than 1 second. I swear it wasn't even a full second. But the moment the curtain slid, they were gone. Not further ahead on the road, not ducking behind a house. Gone. The street is long and straight. There are no alleys, no fences, nowhere to hide. You can see clear from one stop sign to the next, but they vanished. Like they blinked out of existence. I remember whispering, hell no, you're seeing shit, Ray. You're tired." My heart pounded like I'd been running. I wasn't scared yet, more confused, annoyed, the way you get when you think your eyes are playing tricks on you. But deep down, a tiny crack of fear opened. I tried to brush it off the way guys do. Pretend it wasn't weird. Pretend I didn't care. I went back to my tea, sat at the table, and kept glancing back at the window like an addict needing one more look. The street was empty. Completely empty. Still, I didn't sleep that night. The following night, I told myself I wasn't checking the window again. I didn't want to feed whatever weird paranoia I thought I was developing. But you know how it is. Your brain wants answers. Around 2:25 a.m., I found myself making tea again. By 2:30, I was standing at the window. Nothing. Just snow blowing sideways, streetlights flickering like they were struggling to stay alive. I exhaled, relieved. See? Nothing. You were just tired, Ray. I even laughed a little. But the night after that, everything changed. It was even colder. A full-on whiteout. The wind was howling so hard I could hear it through the walls, a low roar that felt like being inside a jet engine. I walked into the kitchen expecting the usual storm routine. The second I reached for the kettle, a weird feeling tightened my stomach. You know that strange instinct like when you walk into a room and immediately know something's off? That cold ripple that moves down your back? Yeah. That. I stepped toward the window, and my whole body locked. They were back. Same two men, same place on the road, same slow, casual walk, talking, gesturing, completely untouched by the storm. My breath frosted the inside of the window as I leaned forward. What the hell? This time I didn't hesitate. I needed to know if I was going crazy or not. I slid the curtain aside, and again, gone. Not walking away, not running. Gone. As if erased. My hands were shaking now. Not from the cold, from something else. Real fear. Real confusion. Real wrongness. I whispered out loud. Okay, this is messed up. What are you? What the hell are you? But nobody answered. For the next week, I barely slept. I checked the window every night. Sometimes I hoped to see them, sometimes I prayed I wouldn't. I tried telling myself logical explanations. Maybe it was some weird optical illusion. Maybe I dozed off on my feet. Maybe the snow created a mirage. But deep down, I knew that was bullshit. On the 5th night, I saw something different. Not the men, something behind them. The snowstorm that night was brutal. Visibility was trash. But somehow the air around the men looked clearer, like they were walking in their own weather. And behind them, way behind them, something like a faint distortion, like heat waves on asphalt in summer, but in the middle of a freezing blizzard. "What are you connected to?" I muttered. They didn't hear me. They didn't slow down, didn't turn, just walked like they were following a path I couldn't see. I didn't move the curtain this time. I kept watching, breathing slow, heartbeat heavy in my ears. The wind rocked my house, but the men didn't flinch. Then, right as the taller one lifted his hand to gesture again, the streetlight flickered. 1 blink, 2, and when it came back, they vanished. Without me touching the curtain, my knees nearly buckled. This was no hallucination, no coincidence, no trick of the eyes. Something impossible was walking down my street during blizzards at 2:30 a.m., and I had no idea why. People always say don't go looking for scary shit. I agree. But after a week of not knowing, something inside me snapped. Curiosity beat fear. I needed answers. So one night, when I saw the men approaching again, I grabbed my coat. Not my thin one, not my regular winter one, my industrial strength double-layered, the world is ending coat. I shoved my feet into boots, slapped on gloves, and stepped out onto the porch. The cold hit me like a fist. God damn. Snow stung my face. The wind shoved me sideways. My breath froze around my scarf. But the two men, moving slow, easy, comfortable, like the storm parted for them. I took a few steps toward the sidewalk, shielding my eyes. "Hey!" I shouted. Nothing. They didn't look up, didn't pause, didn't acknowledge me at all. I took 3 more steps, boots crunching deep into snow. "Hey! Answer me!" Still nothing. But then, the shorter one turned his head. Just a little. Not toward me, but like he sensed something. I felt ice crawl under my skin. I wasn't sure if I wanted them to see me anymore. He lifted his hand, pointing somewhere ahead of them, and that same strange heat wave distortion shimmered again, rising off the road like invisible ripples. "What is that?" I whispered. It grew stronger, clearer, almost doorway-shaped. No edges, no color, just a warping in the air. The taller man stepped toward it. My chest tightened. Suddenly, every instinct inside me screamed, "Don't go closer. Don't get near them. Don't get near that thing." The shorter man followed him, and then, in one stride, they stepped into the distortion. The air folded, and they disappeared. Not walked away, not dissolved. They entered something, like a passage, like a doorway into nowhere. I stumbled backward, breath caught in my throat, legs shaking. "Oh, hell no, hell no!" The snowstorm crashed back into reality around me, the wind howling loud enough to swallow my voice. I ran back inside, slammed the door, locked it, and sank to the floor. I knew exactly what I saw. A doorway, a goddamn doorway. Not to another place here, but to another reality. Another version of this street, another world layered over ours. A place where those men belonged, and I didn't. I only saw them one more time, 2 weeks later, another blizzard. Same time, 2:30 a.m., same place. But something was different. They weren't calm, they weren't strolling, they were walking fast, urgent, as if being chased. The shorter man kept glancing behind them. The taller one motioned sharply, like saying, "Keep moving." My skin prickled. Something felt wrong. More wrong than usual. The wind around them wasn't calm anymore. It was swirling, twisting, spinning too tight around their bodies, like the storm was trying to grab them. And behind them, that distortion returned. But this time, it pulsed. Almost like a heartbeat. Almost like something on the other side was pushing through. I wanted to look away. I wanted to back up. But I was frozen, staring. The taller man reached the distortion, stepped in, gone. The shorter man was right behind him. Then he stopped, turned, and looked directly at me, dead in the eyes. A full, unbroken stare. Even through the storm, even through the window. He looked at me like he finally noticed I'd been watching them for days. His expression wasn't angry. It wasn't scared. It was sad, like he was silently saying, "Don't follow." Then, he stepped backward into the distortion. The air folded, and he was gone. The distortion snapped shut like a popped bubble. And that was it. I never saw them again. 6 years later, I still check that street every damn night. Habit now. Trauma maybe. Or just a need to know if whatever world those men came from ever crosses mine again. People ask me why I'm so obsessed with blizzards. Why I drink tea at 2:30 a.m. Why I stare outside like I'm waiting for someone. Well, now you know. I've seen some strange things in life. Shadows, noises, weird feelings. But nothing I could swear was definitely real. Except this. 2 men walking through storms untouched. A doorway in the snow. Eyes meeting mine across 2 worlds. Maybe there are other versions of us out there. Maybe some realities overlap only when the weather tears things thin. Maybe I got lucky, or unlucky, enough to catch a glimpse. I don't pretend to understand it. All I know is this. Some things don't belong to our world, and sometimes during the worst storms, our world forgets to keep them out. I was 6 years old the winter my family almost froze to death on an empty stretch of Idaho highway. But I don't remember the worst parts, at least not directly. What I remember is the smell of my mother's coat, the sting of snowflakes hitting my face whenever the van door opened, and my father cussing under his breath in a way he never did when he thought kids were listening. But the story wasn't one I carried. It was one that carried me. My mother told it so many times growing up at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, anytime someone complained about winter that the pieces I don't remember became memories anyway. They sank into me, and every time she told it, she'd end the same way, staring at me like she still couldn't understand any of it. I still don't know how you knew his name, Rick. That night has been stuck in my head for years, and now I'm old enough to tell it myself, with the feeling I didn't understand back then, the feeling something else was out on that highway with us. Something watching, something knowing. My mom, Lynn, was 29 back then. My stepfather, Calder, was a big, quiet guy who worked construction and believed duct tape could fix anything except marriage problems. We lived in a small rental house in Nampa, Idaho, where the wind always seemed to carry dirt, and every winter came earlier than the weatherman promised. We were supposed to leave a day earlier to visit my grandfather near Salmon, Idaho, a long drive north, through winding mountain roads that froze even when the sun was up. But my stepdad got stuck working late, and my mom refused to drive those roads without him. So the trip shifted to the next morning. The forecast said, light snow. Bullshit. By the time we passed Chalice, the sky looked bruised and angry. By the time we reached the mountains, the wind was knifing through the van. And by the time the snow started sticking, Calder said the words that made my mother's jaw clench. We'll be fine, just a few flurries. My mom turned around in her seat and gave me and my big brother, Lane, the first of many fake smiles of the night. You boys warm enough? Blankets tucked? I nodded. Lane shrugged. He was 9 and always pretending to be tougher than me. Outside, the storm swallowed the road. Inside, the old van started to sound sick. And from that point on, the story stops being a family trip and becomes something else. Around 5:40 p.m., when the sun dipped behind the mountain ridge and everything turned blue and black, the van made a sound like someone grinding metal inside a blender. Shit, Calder muttered. The engine spit, wheezed, and then gave one last rattling cough before dying. The steering wheel pulled hard, and even as a kid, I felt the van drift, skidding on ice. My mom yelled, Calder, watch the edge. He fought the wheel just enough to keep us from sliding toward the cliffside. The van rolled onto the thin shoulder of the road and shuddered to a stop, the wind rocking it as if the storm itself was impatient. When everything went quiet, Lane whispered, Are we gonna die? My mom snapped, No, nobody's dying. Everyone stay calm. But adults lie when they need to. Calder tried the ignition again. Click. Nothing. He waited. Tried again. Click, click. Nothing. This is bad, he whispered, not quietly enough. Mom grabbed her phone. 1 bar. A miracle. She dialed Roadside Assistance, CAA. The Canadian-based service Idaho drivers could still call. A weird quirk of the border state agreements. The closest help was over an hour away. When she hung up, her voice was thin. They said they'll send whoever they can. But the dispatcher said the storm is worse up here than they thought. She couldn't promise how fast anyone could reach us. Calder looked out into the black swirling snow. No one's gonna be on this road tonight. He wasn't wrong. Mom bundled us, wrapping me inside her coat like a second skin. The temperature dropped so fast my breath felt sharp. Lane said his fingers hurt. Mom kissed his forehead and whispered, "I know, baby, I know." Then she pressed her face into my hair, and though she tried to hide it, I felt her shiver. I didn't know fear yet, not the way adults do, but I remember thinking the dark outside felt too big, too empty, too silent, like it was waiting for us. This is where the memory goes from blurry to sharp, the moment that never makes sense to my parents, no matter how they retell it. My mom was holding me, rocking slightly, her breath shaking. She whispered to Calder, "What if nobody finds us? What if they can't get through the snow?" Her voice cracked on the last word. Snow beat against the van. Wind howled like something alive. And then little 6-year-old me lifted my face out of her coat and said, "Don't worry, Mom, Michael's coming." My mom froze. Calder looked back sharply. "What'd he say?" he said. "Michael's coming." Mom tried to smile, but her eyes were confused. "You mean guardian angel Michael?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "No, the man. The man in the big truck. For 2 hours, nothing passed us. Not one car, not one sound except the storm beating at the metal. We ran out of juice on the emergency lights. The van got so cold that Lane started crying, and Calder, who never cried in his life, wiped his nose on his sleeve like he didn't want us to see. Mom kept humming to me. Her voice was almost gone. Then, a glow through the storm. My mom jerked upright. "What is that?" A pair of headlights cut through the darkness like 2 coins burning white in a sea of black. The hum of an engine grew louder until a massive tow truck crawled around the bend, snow chains cracking against the ice. Calder scrambled outside, slipping on the frozen ground. "Hey, over here!" he yelled into the wind. The truck pulled beside the van, brake lights turning the snow red. The driver swung his door open and stepped out, a tall man in a heavy winter coat, snow crusted on his hood, a flashlight in his gloved hand. He walked up, leaned into the storm and shouted, "Evenin', folks. I'm with CAA. Name's Michael. You the family that called in?" My mom gasped so hard she dropped her glove. Calder stopped mid-step. I just blinked and whispered, "Told you." The driver, Michael, didn't notice their shock. He was too busy tossing chains out and checking the tow hook. "Storm's getting ugly," he said. "You're damn lucky I made it through that last ridge. Roads iced over to hell. But don't worry, I'll get you out." He smiled, and even through the cold, it felt warm. But here's the part my parents always remember. He turned toward me and looked startled, like he somehow recognized me. Like he had expected me. But he didn't say anything. Not yet. Michael worked fast, too fast for how bad the storm was. Like he'd done this exact tow 100 times on this exact road. When he helped Mom carry me to the truck, he said, "Little guy looks half frozen. Let's warm him up." But something about the way he said "little guy" made Mom stiffen. Like he'd known who I was before she said my name. Lane whispered, "Mom, I don't like him." Mom said, "He's here to help us, sweetheart." But her voice had that trembling note she only used when she was lying. Calder climbed into the back of the tow truck and immediately asked, "How'd you even get through all that?" Dispatcher said the roads might close. Michael tightened his jaw a little. "Had to. Someone needed me." He started the engine. And I always go where I'm needed. Mom and Calder exchanged a look. I just stared at him, because I remembered something new, something small, something I had kept to myself. When I'd told my mother earlier that Michael was coming, I wasn't talking about an angel. I wasn't talking about a guess. I wasn't talking about a dream. I was talking about the man I saw standing beside the van in the storm earlier. A man no one else saw. A man I saw only for a second before he disappeared in the snow. Same jacket, same voice, same face. Halfway down the mountain, the tow truck swerved slightly as Michael looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Kid," he said, "your mom told me what you said back there." I didn't answer. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "How'd you know my name before I got there?" Mom squeezed my hand. "Rick, honey, you don't have to." But Michael cut her off. No. I want to hear it from him." His voice dropped lower. "Go on, kid. Tell me." The tow truck felt too warm now. Too small. Too quiet. "I saw you," I whispered. Michael blinked. "Saw me? When?" "Before the truck came." Mom and Calder froze. Michael stared straight ahead. The wipers thumped, snow smeared across the windshield like white blood. Then he spoke very softly. "Kid, I wasn't here before." A cold feeling crept into my stomach. Because I wasn't lying. I had seen him, standing beside the dead van, staring through the window at me, like he was waiting. We reached a small pull-off area halfway down the mountain, a place where the storm usually cleared. Except tonight, it didn't. The wind screamed harder. Michael slowed the truck. "We're stopping here," he said. Calder frowned. "Why?" "We're not even close to town." Michael didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, "Because something's wrong." He turned his head slightly, looking at me again, and something in his expression changed from normal to almost fearful. "Kid," he muttered, "you weren't supposed to know me." My mom's voice went sharp with panic. "What the hell does that mean?" Suddenly every light on the dashboard flickered. The engine coughed, died. The tow truck went dark. The storm outside pressed against the glass like a living thing. Michael whispered, almost to himself, "Not again." My mom grabbed Calder's arm. "What the hell is happening?" Before he could answer, the headlights flashed back on for 1 second, and in that second, I saw the same figure standing in the road ahead. Same height, same jacket, same boots, same face as Michael. My breath hitched. "Mom," I whispered, "there's 2 of them." "No, baby," she said, shaking. "You're just scared." But Calder saw it too. "Jesus, who the hell is that?" Michael did not look surprised, not even a little. Instead, he whispered, "Not again, not again." He opened the truck door. Mom screamed, "What are you doing?" Michael didn't turn around. "He followed me," he said. Then, "He always follows me." He stepped out into the storm. The figure outside stepped closer, and the door slammed shut. Through the fogged-up windshield, all we could see were silhouettes Michael and the other man circling each other in the blizzard. Their voices carried through the wind. "You were supposed to leave that night," the man said. Michael shouted, "I did what I could." "You saved them," the man replied. "You weren't supposed to save them," my mom gasped. Calder inhaled sharply. Lane started crying. I stared, frozen. The silhouettes collided. A struggle, a yell, a flash of something bright like white fire. Then, silence. The storm swallowed everything. Michael did not come back. Neither did the other man. 40 minutes later, though it felt like hours, another tow truck arrived. A different driver, a different voice, a different company patch. He radioed for emergency services. He wrapped us in blankets. He asked if we'd seen any other trucks on the road. My mom said, "Yes, a man named Michael. He saved us, but..." He walked out into the storm. The driver frowned. "I'm the only truck on duty tonight," he said, "and no one named Michael works for us." Mom argued with him. Calder insisted. They described the truck, the jacket, the chains, everything. The driver just shook his head. "Ma'am, there hasn't been a driver named Michael in this region since 2008. Mom blinked. "What happened to him?" The driver hesitated. "He died on this mountain. Snowstorm. Tried to rescue a family, but he didn't make it back." He paused. "People say he still shows up when someone needs him." My mom went pale. Calder stopped breathing for a second. I just whispered softly, "I told you he was coming." I'm grown now, old enough to look back and understand something I didn't at 6. I didn't predict Michael. I didn't guess his name. I saw him. I saw him standing beside the van before he ever arrived. I saw something that wasn't alive anymore. Something replaying moments it never finished. And sometimes on nights when the snow hits the window just right, I swear I hear that tow truck engine again. Not loud, not close, just enough to know he's still out there, still driving that mountain road, still saving people he was never supposed to save, still trying to fix the one night he never got to finish, and maybe still following me, because I saw him when I wasn't supposed to, and he knew it. He looked right at me, like he remembered me, like he was waiting for me to grow up enough to understand what I saw. Maybe someday I will. For now, all I know is, I was 6 years old the night a dead man saved my family, and I never forgot his name, Michael. I was 27 the day I finally admitted to myself that something from my childhood had never stopped following me. People talk about childhood memories like they're soft, things blurry, half forgotten, softened by time. But some memories don't fade. Some sit in you like a splinter that was never pulled out, and every time you breathe a certain way, you feel the sting again. My splinter came from the winter I was 7, living up in a small rural town in northern Vermont, a place called Coldwater Hollow, tucked in near the Green Mountains. Back then, we lived in a creaky 2-story house my dad built himself. We had 3 acres of land lined with thick pines, and behind that, another stretch of forest nobody really kept track of. Folks out there always said, "Don't go past the old maple stand. That's where the woods stop being friendly." I was too young to understand what they meant. Back then, my world was simple: school, snow, cartoons, and my mom yelling that I needed thicker socks. Dad worked nights plowing the county roads. Mom worked mornings at a general store off Route 91. Most days I came home to an empty house until she got off work. My older brother, Lyle, was 13 then, tall, loud, sarcastic, always acting like he was 20. He had this way of rolling his eyes like everything I did was the dumbest thing he'd ever seen. But for all the teasing, he was protective of me. More protective than I realized until much later. That November morning started normal. Or, at least I thought it did. The phone rang at 6:22 a.m., one of those old beige wall phones that always sounded like someone was screaming through a tin can. Mom answered. "Yeah? Uh-huh. Okay, got it." She hung up and blew hair out of her face. School's closed. Roads are iced over like glass. She looked stressed, part relief, part annoyance. Lyle fist pumped. "Hell yeah. Snow day." Mom snapped. "Watch the language." I sat at the counter eating cereal and kicking my legs under the chair. "Can I go outside later? Like, down to the creek?" Mom shook her head. "Not the creek. You stay where I can see you. Snow's deep, and the woods aren't plowed." Dad wasn't home, he was still out plowing the interstate. Once Mom left for work, it was just me and Lyle. He made himself a grilled cheese at 10 a.m. and told me to quit hovering around. "You're like a little dog," he muttered. "Go play or something." I took that as permission. I bundled up snow bibs, boots, gloves, scarf. I grabbed the cheap plastic sled and headed into the backyard, which sloped into a hill before the line of trees. The air was cold enough to sting my lungs. Everything was bright, quiet, peaceful, normal, so painfully normal. If I had known what the next 10 hours would do to my life, I would have slammed the back door shut and stayed inside. It started small. A silence. Not just quiet, the absence of sound. No wind, no creaking trees, no far-off snowmobiles. Just a total dead hush that didn't fit the world. At 7 years old, I didn't have the vocabulary for it. But adults later would call it the pressure drop before something bad. I remember pausing halfway down the hill, looking around. "Lyle?" I yelled. Nothing. I shrugged and kept trudging to the woods. Behind our property was a path, really just a deer trail that led deeper toward a small clearing with a frozen pond. I wasn't supposed to go there, but kids always think they're invincible. I remember thinking I'd be back in maybe 15 minutes. The snow was up past my calves, but I kept moving, humming to myself, dragging the sled behind me. That's when I noticed the silence again. Heavier, thicker, like the world was holding its breath. I stopped near the old maple stand. The trees there were twisted and blackened from a lightning strike years before. Folks called them the burned fingers. As a kid, I thought that was funny. But that morning, they didn't look funny. They looked watchful. Still, I stepped past them. The pond came into view flat, frozen, pale as bone. And that's when things went wrong. At first, nothing happened. Then the hair on my arms stood up under my jacket. A crawling, prickling sensation started at the base of my neck and went all the way down my spine. I'd never felt fear like that before. Not fear of something real, fear of something unseen. I whispered, "Hello? Why do kids do that? Why did I do that?" and the forest answered with silence. Then, a crunch. Snow. Behind me. I spun so fast I slipped and fell backward onto the ice. My breath fogged in frantic bursts. Lyle? But Lyle wasn't there. Something else was. It was standing just beyond the tree line. Far enough that I couldn't see details, but close enough that my brain screamed to run. A tall shape. Too tall. Wrongly tall. Thin. Unmoving. Like a shadow someone had cut from paper and propped upright. I blinked and it shifted like it jumped closer without moving. My chest collapsed in on itself. I scrambled to my feet, abandoning the sled. I don't remember breathing. I just remember running. Branches slapped my face. Snow filled my boots. My lungs burned. I didn't look back. I knew if I looked back, I would fall apart. The silence followed me all the way home. When I stumbled into the backyard, the sky was orange. Not morning orange. Sunset orange. That's when I froze. Mom burst out the back door. Panicked. "Where were you?" she screamed. "Do you have any idea, God?" I called the neighbors, the sheriff. I stared at her like she was speaking another language. I just left. I was only gone a little bit." "You left at 10, she choked out, grabbing me by my shoulders. 10 hours. 10 hours that felt like 20 minutes. I tried to explain. She tried to understand. But neither of us could. What scared her most wasn't that I disappeared. It was that I had no frostbite, no exhaustion, no dehydration, no sign I'd been out in the elements for an entire day. As if I really had only been gone 20 minutes. Dad came home later, pacing, furious and terrified all at once. "What the hell were you doing out there?" I don't. "Son, don't lie to me." But I wasn't lying. For years, that day lived in my mind like a shadow underwater, visible, but distorted. I stopped going into the woods. I slept with my light on until I was 11. Anytime the world outside went unnaturally quiet, I felt sick, but I could never explain why. I didn't know what stole those 10 hours. I didn't know whether I saw a creature, a person, or something else entirely. I only knew that whatever I saw had noticed me, and it never forgot. Fast forward to now, 27 years old, living in Chicago, working as a mechanic. You'd think the city would drown out memories of forests and silence, but trauma doesn't work like that. One night last December, during a blizzard that shut down half the city, I got off work at 9 p.m. The streets were empty, snow swirling sideways. Visibility barely 40 feet. I trudged toward my apartment 3 blocks away, head down, hood up, and then silence. Not city silence, not snow silence. That silence. My breath hitched. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The air felt heavy, familiar. That same crawling at the back of my neck spread like freezing water. I turned. Something stood in the snow haze down the block. A tall silhouette, too tall, too straight, too still. My chest tightened. The blizzard howled around me, but somehow I heard footsteps crunching in the snow behind me. Soft, slow, deliberate, just like before. "Not again," I whispered, stumbling backward. The streetlight above me flickered violently. Then, it went out. I ran. I didn't think, didn't look back. I sprinted up the stairs of my apartment building, slammed the door shut, locked it, deadbolted it, pressed my back against the wood. My heart hammered like it would break my ribs. In the silence of the hallway, something tapped once against the other side of my door. Just a single knock, almost curious. Then nothing. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't sleep the next. By the third night, I cracked. I booked a flight back to Vermont, back to Coldwater Hollow for the first time in 19 years. If something had followed me, I needed answers. Mom had moved years ago, but Lyle still lived up there, working as a logger. He picked me up from the airport in his beat-up Ford. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel like it. Why are you here all of a sudden?" "I needed to see the woods." He shot me a sharp look. "You're not thinking about that day again, are you?" I didn't answer. His grip tightened on the wheel. "You were gone 10 hours, man. 10. I searched that whole damn forest. Mom was losing her mind. I know. I still have nightmares about it. That surprised me. Lyle never talked about feelings. What nightmares? He hesitated. I heard you calling, he said quietly. But you weren't there. I kept hearing you yelling my name. But every time I followed the voice, I ended up deeper in the woods. I don't talk about it because nobody believes me. A chill rippled through me. Lyle, I said, voice shaking. I saw something that day. He didn't speak. I don't know what it was, but I think it found me again. In Chicago. He went pale. Why'd you come back then? That thing, if it's real, you let it home. I think it was already coming anyway. We reached the old house around dusk. Nobody lived there anymore. It was half rotted, porch sagging, windows dirty. Snow covered everything in a thick, untouched sheet. Lyle killed the engine. You sure you want to go in? He asked. No, but I have to. Inside, the house smelled like dust and cold wood. My boots creaked on the floorboards. My breath fogged in the stale air. Everything was exactly how I remembered it, except wrong. Smaller, darker, as if time had decided the house wasn't worth holding together. Lyle stood behind me, one hand near the hunting knife on his belt. Let's get this over with. We stepped out the back door, and the world went silent. Instantly, my stomach dropped. Lyle whispered, "Not again." The woods beyond the yard felt darker than night, heavy, watching. Then, crunch, snow. Behind us, we turned slowly. A figure stood at the tree line, tall, thin, wrong. Not a shadow this time, something more solid. Its limbs were too long, its posture too straight. Its face, Jesus, its face was impossible. Like the idea of a face, but not the details. Features blurred, floating, shifting. My mouth went dry. Lyle grabbed my arm. Don't run. That's what it wants. What is it? I don't know, he whispered. But it tried to use your voice back then. Tried to use my voice. The creature stepped forward, not walking, sliding, like reality didn't have the right rules for it. My vision blurred. My ears rang. My mind felt like it was being pulled sideways. Lyle gripped me harder. Stay with me. Stay here. But I heard something else. A voice. My own voice. Coming from the creature. Come back. It whispered perfectly, mimicking my 7-year-old self. Come play by the pond. A wave of nausea hit me. My knees buckled. No. I gasped. No. No. The creature tilted its head, studying me like a scientist studying an insect. And then, time bent, not stopped, bent. The trees around us warped. The sky flickered between dusk, night, morning, dusk again. The snow fell upward. The ground felt like water. For a split second I saw the pond, frozen and pale. Even though we were nowhere near it, my childhood boots sank into the ice. My adult boots stood in the snow. Both realities overlapped. I screamed. Lyle screamed my name and yanked me backward so hard I crashed onto the ground. The world snapped back into place like a rubber band. The creature twitched just once and the entire forest groaned like a dying animal. Then it vanished. Gone. Like someone deleted it from the world. The silence lifted. Sound returned. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, the only thing anchoring me to my body. Lyle dropped beside me, breathing hard. You okay? No, I whispered. I don't think I've ever been okay. We didn't stay in the woods. We didn't stay at the house. We didn't talk during the drive back to town, before I boarded the flight back to Chicago the next morning. Lyle grabbed my shoulder. That thing ain't done with you, he said. But listen, whatever happens next, don't go off alone. Don't let it pull you somewhere it controls. Where does it control? I asked. His face was grim. Anywhere the world goes real quiet. It's been 3 weeks since then. Chicago hasn't had silence since the 1800s. Sirens, honking, trains, people yelling from windows. This city is noise incarnate. But last night, around 2 a.m., while brushing my teeth, the building went still. Dead still. No humming appliances. No cars outside. No pipes. No neighbors. Just silence. And in that silence, I heard a child's voice whisper behind me. My own voice. Come back. I dropped the toothbrush. I didn't turn around, because I knew if I looked into the mirror, I wouldn't see my reflection. I'd see the pond, waiting for me. I don't know what happens next, but I know the woods weren't the start, and they weren't the end. Whatever it is, it wants something, and it has all the time in the world to take it. I was 13 the first time I spent a full winter weekend alone in our family's mountain cabin. A little place tucked between endless stretches of pine forest and long, winding country roads that barely anyone used except during hunting season. My parents bought the cabin years back, nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, and a porch that creaked whenever the wind hit it right. Back then, being alone felt like the coolest thing ever. No yelling, no chores, no lectures about my slipping math grade. Just me, the snow, and whatever I felt like watching on Netflix. But before I tell you about the night that changed how I see snowstorms forever, there's something you need to know. I used to love storms. I don't know why. Most kids got scared when thunder shook the windows or snow piled up high enough to bury half the driveway. But me, it felt peaceful, safe, like the whole world got quieter and smaller for a while. When I was little, my mom would wrap me in 2 blankets, make me hot cocoa, and we'd watch the snow fall from the living room window. I thought storms were comforting, magical, even. I don't think that anymore. My parents were celebrating their anniversary that Saturday and had planned to stay out late, a dinner 2 towns over, a movie, maybe a nightcap. They left around 5, just as the sky started whitening over and the wind kicked up little tornadoes of snow on the driveway. My mom said, "If it gets bad, call us, okay?" And my dad added, "Don't open the door unless you hear us call your name. People get weird during storms." He always said stuff like that, but I barely listened. I was 14 and convinced bad things only happened in movies. They hadn't been gone 10 minutes before the first flakes started falling sideways. The cabin windows rattled like loose teeth. I knew what that meant. Roads were going to be a nightmare, but I was fine. I had the whole place to myself. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my jacket onto the couch, cracked open a root beer, and went straight for Netflix. I picked some cheesy horror flick partly because I thought it made me look braver than I was, partly because I figured watching scary stuff alone would prove something to myself. About 20 minutes in, I got hungry. I checked the fridge empty except for ketchup packets and leftover chili I swore I'd never touch again. So I ordered a pizza. The lady on the phone sounded exhausted. "Just so you know," she said, "our driver's running slow today. That storm's coming in heavy." "No worries," I said, acting way more laid back than I felt. She laughed. "Lucky kid. Sit tight." I hung up, went back to my movie, and tried not to imagine the driver skidding into a ditch somewhere. Outside, the wind howled like it was angry at the world. The storm got worse fast. Snow wasn't just falling, it was slamming sideways like someone turned on a giant fan above the cabin. The lights flickered twice, making my heart drop each time. One time the power had gone out up there, and we didn't have heat for hours. I really didn't want to repeat. I checked the time. 9:47 p.m. The pizza should have been there by now. I was halfway through convincing myself they must have canceled the order when, bing bong, the sound sliced right through the cabin, way louder and sharper than our city doorbell back home. I jumped, nearly spilling my drink. I paused the movie, set the remote down, and walked to the door. I remember my hand shaking a little, but I told myself it was just the cold. I pulled the door open, and the cold slammed into me like a truck. But that wasn't what shocked me. It was him. A man stood on the porch wearing what looked like a pizza uniform, but not any company I recognized. The shirt was dark red, stretched too tight across his chest, and missing 2 buttons near the top. His name tag was scratched up, the letters carved unevenly, like someone made it with a pocket knife. It read, Rick. He looked wrong. His hair was too long for food service, long enough to curl over his shoulders. His face was smeared with dirt, or maybe grease, I couldn't tell. And the smile he gave me, it wasn't a normal smile. It was stiff, stretched too wide, like he was trying to copy what a smile should look like. He held out a pizza box. "You ordered this?" he asked, voice light and weirdly cheerful, like he practiced sounding friendly but didn't quite get it right. I hesitated. Yeah, I did. Thanks." He didn't blink. "Cold night, huh?" "Yeah." He kept staring. Not at my face. Through it. Then he said, "You live out here all alone?" A red flag exploded in my head. I said quickly, "My parents are inside. They're just, upstairs." He still didn't blink. I reached into my pocket and realized my wallet wasn't there. "Hold on," I said. "I'll grab the cash from the kitchen." His smile twitched wider. "I'll wait." I closed the door almost all the way, leaving just a tiny crack so I could watch him. He didn't move, just stood there, smiling. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my wallet, and heard the little TV in the corner playing. We always kept it on the local news channel for weather updates. I wasn't paying much attention until I heard, "Local authorities have confirmed the identity of the deceased man found earlier today in a roadside ditch." I froze. The victim, Rick Halper, a pizza delivery driver for Mountain Slice, was last seen leaving the restaurant around 6 p.m. I turned toward the TV. Police believe he was robbed, assaulted, and left in the snow without his uniform. If you live in the Pine Ridge area, please do not open your door to any unfamiliar delivery drivers. The suspect may be impersonating. My stomach dropped to the floor. His name tag, his weird uniform, his off smile. The man standing at my door called himself Rick. The man on TV was dead. My brain short-circuited. I ran. But when I reached the entryway, the door was wide open. The porch was empty, and the pizza box lay on the floor face down, snow melting around it. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out. My first instinct was to call the cops. My second instinct was to run outside and sprint for the nearest house, which was almost a mile away through thick woods and waist-high snow. My third instinct was to hide, but I didn't do any of those things right away. I reached for my phone, and my pocket was empty. Then it hit me. I left it upstairs, on the nightstand, next to the closet. That closet I hated. I swallowed hard, grabbed the biggest kitchen knife we owned, and crept toward the staircase. Every step felt like walking through quicksand. My legs shook so badly I could barely lift them. Halfway up, the cabin creaked. Not a normal creak. A heavy one. Like someone shifting their weight on an old floorboard. I stopped breathing, but I forced myself to keep moving. When I reached the top, the hallway felt colder, like someone had opened a window or left a door ajar. My bedroom door was wide open. I hugged the wall and leaned my head just enough to peek inside. Nothing. Just my unmade bed, my backpack on the floor, a hoodie hanging off the chair, and my phone. On the nightstand, 2 feet from the closet. The closet door was slightly open. It was always shut before. My pulse hammered through my ears. I held the knife tighter, hands slick with sweat. I whispered to myself, "Just grab it, grab the phone and run." I slid 1 foot into the room, then another. I reached toward the phone just inches away. The closet door shifted. Not much, just half an inch, but enough to see. Eyes, staring at me, wide, unblinking, and smiling. A smile so big it looked painful. I screamed. He burst out of the closet with a sound I'll never forget, half laugh, half gasp, like he was excited. I bolted through the door, almost tripping over my own feet. Behind me, he ran after me, bare footsteps slapping against the wooden floor. I skidded toward the stairs, gripping the railing so hard I felt splinters. I didn't look back until I reached the bottom. He was right behind me, eyes wide, smile stretched, still not blinking. I sprinted to the nearest room, the downstairs bathroom, and slammed the door shut so hard the frame shook. I locked it, shoved my weight against it, knife trembling in my hand. He hit the door immediately. Not with fists, with his shoulder. Each hit made the frame crack, and each time he hit it, he laughed. It didn't match him at all. It was high-pitched, childish, playful. "Let me in," He sang in a soft, almost teasing voice. "Come on, kid. I just want to talk." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The hits got stronger, harder. The door groaned. I scanned the bathroom. Tiny sink, shower curtain, toilet, mirror, no good hiding places. Only one way out. The narrow window above the toilet. I climbed onto the seat, pushed the window, and it miraculously opened. Snow blasted inside, stinging my face. I wiggled halfway through. Crack. The doorframe split. I threw myself out the window, landing in a pile of snow that swallowed me nearly to the chest. My hands were numb instantly. My breath fogged in front of me. I scrambled up, slipping, falling again, finally forcing myself into a stand. Inside the cabin, I heard one last impact. Thud, crack, silence, then rapid footsteps heading toward the front door. He was coming outside. The storm was brutal. The wind howled so loudly it drowned out almost everything. I staggered to the side of the cabin, unable to run more than a few steps without losing my footing. That's when I heard him. But not footsteps. Laughing. That same childish, too-high laugh. I turned left. Nothing. I turned right. His face appeared around the corner of the cabin. Just his face, peeking out slowly, smiling. I screamed. He stepped into full view, still wearing that too-tight uniform, snow sticking to his hair and shoulders. He wasn't running this time. He was tiptoeing toward me, like an exaggerated cartoon sneak, knees high, arms bent, head bobbing, every step slow and playful, like he was enjoying it. I stumbled backward, slipping, trying to force my legs to move. But the snow was too deep, the wind too strong. He kept coming. 5 feet, 4, 3. Just when he got close enough that I could see the frost forming on his eyelashes. Sirens. Red and blue lights broke through the trees. He froze, still smiling. Then he waved at me, waved, and sprinted into the woods. I ran toward the police car, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. 2 officers jumped out, grabbing my shoulders, asking if I was hurt. I couldn't form words at first. Everything came out jumbled and scattered. Eventually I got it out. The whole story. Every detail. They searched the cabin. Then the woods. Nothing. No footprints after a certain point. Winds covered everything. My parents got home an hour later, panicked, furious, terrified. My mom held me so tightly I could barely breathe. The police stayed with us until morning. They found the pizza box. They found the broken door. They found fingerprints, but none matched anyone in their database. They never found him. Not a trace. Not a single sighting in the county. It's been years, but winter storms still make my chest tighten. Anytime someone comes to the door with a delivery, I check their face, their uniform, their shoes, their smile. Especially their smile. I wish I could say he ever came back. Or that sometimes I hear knocks at night. But I don't. Nothing ever happened again. And somehow, that makes it worse. Because I know he's still out there. Somewhere. And I know he wasn't done. He just got interrupted. I was 24 the winter I learned how carefully some people rehearse being heroes. The snow had already been falling for 3 days straight. The kind of slow, relentless storm that turns a city into something smaller and quieter. Sidewalks narrowed into single-file paths. Streetlights glowed like tired suns behind curtains of white. Sirens sounded farther away than usual, muffled, like the city itself was holding its breath. I remember standing at my apartment window that night, coffee cooling in my hands, watching the snow erase tire tracks below. I'd just moved to Ridgeway, a mid-sized city tucked against a river in the northern Midwest, big enough to disappear in, small enough to feel watched if you weren't careful. I didn't know many people yet. My job at a medical billing office paid the rent, not much else. Most evenings were spent scrolling on my phone, telling myself this was temporary, that something better would come along. That was the night I downloaded Tinder. I told myself it was harmless. Everyone did it. Just conversations. Just looking. I wasn't even really lonely. At least that's what I told myself, but the quiet had been getting louder lately. Snowstorms will do that. They trap you with your own thoughts. The matches came fast. Faster than I expected. Compliments, emojis, lazy pickup lines. Most of them blurred together until one name stuck. Rowan Hale. His photos were different. Not polished, not filtered to death. One of him in a flannel jacket, snow dusting his shoulders, smiling like he'd just been caught mid-laugh. Another at what looked like a dive bar, arms slung around someone cropped out of frame. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that somehow looked warm even through a screen. "You look like someone who doesn't fake laughs," his first message said. I smiled despite myself. We talked that whole night. About bad bosses, favorite comfort food, the weird things snow makes people do. He was quick, funny without trying too hard. He didn't push, didn't get sexual. That alone felt rare enough to be worth noticing. After a few days of messaging, he suggested drinks. "There's this place near Old Harbor," he typed. Low key, cheap whiskey, no fake vibes. The snowstorm was still going strong, but something about the idea felt right. Public place, early evening. I agreed. The bar was called the North Line, a long, narrow room with wood-paneled walls and a chalkboard listing beers nobody could pronounce. The heat hit me the second I walked in, fogging my glasses. I shook snow from my coat and scanned the room. Rowan stood near the bar, hands in his pockets. When he saw me, his face lit up like we were old friends instead of two strangers about to find out whether chemistry existed in real life. "You made it," he said, grinning. "I was starting to think the storm kidnapped you." "Almost," I joked. "I fought my way here with a shovel." He laughed, and just like that, my nerves settled. We ordered drinks, talked about family. He grew up 2 towns over, moved to Ridgeway a year ago for work. Construction management, long hours, decent pay. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. When I talked about my job, he didn't interrupt or look bored. Time slipped by easily. The bar filled, then thinned. Outside, the snow kept falling. Eventually, we paid and stepped back into the cold. The storm had quieted the streets, leaving everything coated in white. Rowan zipped his jacket up to his chin. "You good walking?" he asked. "I can call you a ride." "I'm okay," I said. "It's only a few blocks. I'll walk with you." I hesitated for half a second, then nodded. It felt normal. Safe, even. We were halfway down Pierce Avenue when it happened. Footsteps behind us. Too fast. Too close. "Hey." I turned just as a man stepped out of the shadow between 2 buildings. He wore a thin jacket, an old baseball cap pulled low. His beard was patchy, his eyes sharp and restless. "Phones, wallets," he said, pulling a knife from his sleeve. Now, everything inside me froze. My body went cold in a way the snow couldn't explain. I remember thinking stupid things. This isn't real. This doesn't happen like this. My hands wouldn't move. Rowan stepped in front of me without hesitation. "Back off," he said, voice steady. "Not worth it." The mugger laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Move, man." The knife flashed as he lunged. I screamed. Rowan moved faster than I expected. He dodged the swing, grabbed the guy's arm, and drove his shoulder into him. They went down hard, boots slipping on ice. The knife skidded across the pavement. Rowan pinned him for half a second, long enough for the message to land, then shoved him away. "Get out of here," he growled. The mugger scrambled up, eyes wild, and ran, just like that, gone into the storm. I stood there shaking, heart pounding so loud I thought it might break my ribs. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Oh my God." Rowan turned to me, breath fogging the air. "Hey, you're okay. You're okay. We need to call the cops," I said. "We need to." "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. "It's done. He's gone. But he had a knife. We should report it." I saw his face. Rowan shook his head. "Trust me, they won't do anything, and it'll just be a whole mess." Something about his tone made me pause. Firm. Final. I didn't like it, but I was still shaking, still processing. I let it go. He walked me home, stopping a block away from my building. "You sure you don't want me to come up?" he asked casually, like it was no big deal. "I'm sure," I said. "But, thank you. Really." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Anytime." That was the last time I felt safe around him. The messages started 2 days later. At first, they were normal. "Had fun the other night? You doing okay after everything?" I replied politely but distantly. I didn't feel a spark. Gratitude, yes. Attraction, no. When he asked me out again, I told him the truth. "I don't think I felt a romantic connection," I typed. "I didn't want to lead you on." The response came fast. "What?" I explained again, gently, carefully. Then the tone changed. "You're joking, right? I literally saved you. So that's it? You just use people and move on?" I stopped replying. The messages kept coming. Angrier, meaner, accusations, threats, long rants sent at 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Missed calls, voicemails I didn't listen to. I blocked his number. He found me on another app. Blocked again. For days, I jumped at every sound outside my apartment, checked over my shoulder on the way to work, slept with a chair wedged under my door handle. Then, suddenly, it stopped. No more messages, no calls, nothing. I told myself it was over. A month later, the snowstorm returned. I was walking home from the grocery store when I saw him. Rowan was coming toward me on the sidewalk, laughing with another man. My stomach dropped. They didn't see me. I ducked behind a building, heart racing, and watched them pass. The man beside him turned his head and I recognized the face instantly. Patchy beard, old baseball cap, the mugger. They laughed together. Easy. Familiar. The truth hit me all at once, cold and sharp. It had never been random. Rowan hadn't saved me. He'd staged it. I stood there shaking as they disappeared down the street, snow swallowing their footprints. I went home and locked the door. Then I sat on the floor and cried until my chest hurt. I still think about what would have happened if I'd said yes. If I'd trusted him. If I'd ignored my instincts. Some people don't want love. They want control. And some storms don't show you who someone is until the snow starts falling.